Hello, attorney Masah SamForay here, owner and founder of the Foray Firm with offices in Houston and in Chicago. And I am back again to talk to you about all things immigration. So today's question is, I wasn't born here, so how do I become a citizen? So essentially the question is, what is my path towards citizenship if I was not born in the United States? So that question really depends on the circumstances and the facts. So first step is, it depends on why you were here in the first place and what your legal basis for being in the United States was in the first place. Did you come on a K-1 fiance visa? Did you come on an F-1 student visa? Are you here on one of the employment-based visas? We're not going to go into deep detail about the path to citizenship from A to Z for all of these visa applications. You can look at that information in other videos that I have done because I've broken down the steps from A to Z for all of those. So what we're going to do for the sake of today's video is to talk about starting at the point of lawful permanent residence, because that is, regardless of how you got here, regardless of your visa, the path to citizenship does take you through the lawful or legal permanent residence stage. So we're going to presume for purposes of this video that you are a lawful permanent resident. And step number 2 after becoming a lawful permanent resident is that you have to reside in the United States for 5 years prior to submitting your application. So you have to have resided in the United States for a continual 5 years prior to submitting your application. And there are USCIS offices all over the country. And so you have to have resided for at least 3 months continuously in the state where you plan to submit your application prior to submitting the application. So 5 years in the US, 3 months in the state where you plan to submit the application. So if you have watched some of my other videos, then you know that this 5 years is actually the standard. But as with many things in immigration, there are waivers and exceptions. So one of the most common ones, if you were here on a marriage or a spouse-based visa and you are married to a US citizen, then you can apply for citizenship after having again received your green card or after having been a lawful permanent resident for only 3 years. So you don't have to wait for 5 years as long as you are married to a US citizen. Another common example is that there's only 1 year wait for asylees. So if you got asylum and you successfully achieved asylum status in the United States, you can apply to become a citizen after only 1 year as opposed to waiting for 5 years. Second step, you have to complete your N-400. All of these terms, these letters, and these numbers, they all, of course, correspond to specific immigration forms. So the specific immigration form for submitting an application to become a U.S. citizen and to adjust your status from being a green card holder is the N-400 form. You need to complete that application. I don't have to tell you how important it is to make sure that it is completed thoroughly and accurately, but I will say that it's not as, in my opinion, burdensome or cumbersome as the process to adjust your status from having a visa to having a green card. That green card application, in my personal opinion, is the most difficult step in the process on the pathway to citizenship. By the time you get to the N-400 application, you are really just reiterating information that has already been thoroughly reviewed and thoroughly vetted at the green card phase. Nevertheless, you have to submit an N-400. You also, number 4, have to be able to read and write English thoroughly and accurately. And after December 2020, you're also going to be able to show that you have some proficiency in speaking English. And there are some other changes that you should definitely check out on USCIS's website as it pertains to the English testing requirements for the citizenship application. Again, there are exceptions to everything. The English requirement does have some exceptions. It did before, 2020, and it will continue to have some even with the changes that we're going to see after December 2020. And those are largely based on your age. If you're age 55 or if you're age 65, again, some of this is tied into the length of time that you have been in the country, but nevertheless, they give exceptions for people who are more senior citizens. Number 5, with regards to the test, you know that, or you should know if you've watched any of my prior videos on citizenship, that there are 2 parts to the actual citizenship test. And number 1 is the English proficiency, but number 2 is civics. You must have some basic knowledge and information about U.S. history and government. U.S. history and government, commonly known as civics. The funny thing is that honestly, these questions are questions that the average U.S. citizen, I would estimate, if you stop them on the street and you ask them, they probably would not know the answers to. Nevertheless, if you scroll down through my videos, I do give some, some helpful hints and common questions that you should expect so that you can guide your study. And there are also a plethora of reading materials online so that you can guide your study. But just know that basic U.S. civics is definitely one of the requirements, and it's something that you're going to have to be able to know and demonstrate as you go into your application. Number 6, make sure that you are of good moral character. So you again have heard about aggravated felonies and some criminal history, issues that will be a permanent and irrevocable bar to citizenship in the United States. But in addition to criminal history, there are also crimes of moral turpitude, if you will, or there are more moral character requirements. And under this current administration, the Trump administration, the moral character requirements have been expanded. So make sure you pay attention to those and make sure you know whether or not you have done anything in your past on record that would prevent you from being able to be eligible for citizenship. And if you have any questions about anything that you've done that might have fallen into a gray area of moral character, make sure that you consult with a trusted immigration attorney. And lastly, you're going to have to generally demonstrate that you can uphold the ideals of the U.S. Constitution. For instance, if you have committed certain, immoral acts, if you are a war criminal, you really should not have even gotten to this step in the process, but if you have done acts that would prevent you from being able to fully espouse the ideals in the U.S. Constitution, or if you have done acts after you arrived in the United States that would cause great concern to the U.S. about U.S. security and about whether or not you would be able to fully espouse and adopt the ideals in the United States Constitution, then that's going to be a bar and a barrier to you to becoming a citizen. Nevertheless, if you've gotten this far in the process, you've already gotten your green card and you are at the point of adjusting that to submit your N-400 application, you are almost there. Congratulations to you, and if you need assistance, make sure you contact us or you contact a trusted immigration attorney so that we can walk you through the last phase in the process. I hope that this has been helpful.